welcome to our program, Native American Piano Music. I am feeling very well today, but I have partially lost my voice. So please bear with me and be patient, and I'll try not to squeak too much, but I appreciate having this microphone. We're going to look at two composers today, one living Native American composer and the leading Native American composer from the 20th century. The first composer is a young man named Chee, who those of you who attended this festival last year may remember him. He was a student of Rebecca Penny's and earned his bachelor's degree in piano at the Eastman School of Music. Subsequently, he went to the Cincinnati College Conservatory to study with Elizabeth Pridnoff and did the graduate degree with her. He's known for incorporating his native heritage with his classical piano training. Connor and I have gotten to know each other the last few years as we are both members of the National MTNA, Music Teachers National Association, National DEI Committee. And so it was through that we've gotten to know each other better, and he sent me his music from time to time, and I've had the great pleasure of learning some of it and performing it for audiences. He was born in Page, Arizona, and makes his home now in Phoenix, Arizona. So we're going to open today with one of his Navajo vocables. This is from a set composed in 2014, and they're based on Navajo corn grinding songs. So this is Navajo Vocable number 1 from his 2014 set. Music of Chee. next turn to music of composer Louis W. Ballard, B-A-L-L-A-R-D. He was the leading Native American composer in the 20th century. Born in Devil's Promenade, Oklahoma, in 1931, he was acknowledged in his lifetime as the leading figure of Native American composition in the classical field. He created major symphonic works, choral works, chamber music, ballet music. He received premieres at Lincoln Center, Kennedy Center, Smithsonian Institution, Hollywood Bowl, and Carnegie Hall. He used Indian subjects authentically without sacrificing his own originality as a composer. His Incident at Wounded Knee was commissioned by the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra and received numerous performances in the United States and Europe. Koshare, an Indian ballet describing a Hopi myth, was toured the United States under the patronage of Mrs. Lyndon Johnson. Other works include a choral cantata, The Gods Will Hear, and Shate Oyana. His ancestry derives from a principal chief of the Cherokee Nation and a medicine chief of the Quapaw Nation. So he's of Cherokee and Quapaw background. His Quapaw name is Haganoshe, which means stands with eagles. Ballard's honors include National Achievement Awards, grants from the Rockefeller and Ford Foundations and National Endowment of the Arts, ASCAP Awards, the first McDowell Award for American Chamber Music, and a Lifetime Musical Achievement Award by First Americans in the Arts. He studied at the University of Oklahoma and received additional degrees from the University of Tulsa, and he was the first Native American to earn a graduate degree in composition in the United States in 1962. His teachers included Darius Milhaud, Castanuovo de Tesco, and Surinat. He also studied at this time in his study years at the Aspen Music School. He was a significant and prominent educator. He was program director for the Bureau of Indian Affairs and developed a bicultural music education program that earned him a Distinguished Service Award from the Central Office of Education and a citation in the Congressional Record. He made his home for many years in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and that's where he passed away in 2007. Louis had a credo, and I want to read it to you. It's not enough to acknowledge that Native American Indian music is different from other music, and that the Indian somehow marches to a different drum as a way of paying obeisance to the unique culture of our Native American Indian people. What is needed in America, as it has always been needed, is an awakening and reorienting of our total spiritual and cultural perspective to embrace, understand, and learn from the Aboriginal American what it is that motivates his musical and artistic impulses. The first work that we will hear of his today is his 4 American Indian Preludes. He composed these in 1963, around the time that he was studying with Darius Milhaud, and Milhaud was extremely excited about these pieces. I will talk about each one before I play it and show you a few things in the compositions. The first one is called Ombaska, which means daylight. And the intro imitates the plains flute. When we say plains, we're talking about the Great Plains of the United States and the tribes that live there and continue to live there. So the plains flute was a significant instrument in these cultures. And you'll hear it's unmetered and ornamental. And the shape of it follows the shape of powwow songs. For those of you who don't know what a powwow is, it's a cultural celebration and often a dance festival. Sometimes competitive, sometimes just for fun, and they still go on. Powwow melodies start at a high pitch and descend to a low one, and you will hear in this first piece, the first top of the melody will be here, and it will descend over a few bars to this note. You will also hear ornamentation, which imitates the plains flute. There's something also Lewis referred to as terrace descending. We'll hear this in the second prelude I play for you, but it's a starting at a high pitch, going to the low pitch like the powwow melodies do, and then stopping on a low pitch and repeating it. And this repetitive note is to imitate a drum or a rattle. And of course the drums were very important in the powwows because they were dance festivals. There is a other thing that appears here in the rhythm, and they're called honor beats. Honor beats were considered to be a gift from the Great Spirit. And let me show you some of them. You'll hear repeated notes that are imitating the drum, but then occasionally you'll hear accented double notes. Those are the honor beats. Let me put it in context for you. So you'll hear those in this particular piece. Before I play it, I want to read Lewis's description of this piece. As you know, the translation is daylight. It means daylight. This is a poetic evocation of natural phenomena as it actualizes the miracle so revered by tribal peoples of nocturnal life evolving into day. So let's hear now the first of the piano preludes of Lewis Ballard. The second prelude is called Tabide, which means the hunt. And Ballard describes this piece as an organic vision of the essence of man's questing spirit. There's a tonal uncertainty throughout this short piece, and it matches the questing spirit that Ballard is describing. One of Ballard's composition teachers was a student of Arnold Schoenberg. So Lewis is actually a grand student of Arnold Schoenberg. And you will hear at one point in this piece a partial tone row, and I'll show it to you. This is a partial 12-tone row. I'll play it for you first kind of slowly because it goes fast when we get in the context of the piece. And this is an example of one of the powwow melody shapes where we start high, this being the highest pitch. It then goes all the way down to this low A flat, and this is the terrace descending technique he talked about. High to low, and then stopping on a repetitive pitch to symbolize either a drum or a rattle. And in this particular place, when I get here, there's a very specific piece, fingering, that Lewis asked pianists to use so that it will more effectively imitate a rattle. So let me show you this one passage here in the context. There are clusters that accompany this partial row. And we land on the rattle. So let's hear now the second prelude, Tubby Day, The Hunt. Our third prelude is Nakatohe, which means love song, and it was written for Lewis's second wife, Ruth Dore. It's a two-voice counterpoint between the hands. The right hand represents the female, the left hand the male. Ballard says that the texture echoes the polarity of life and the poetic interaction of male and female. And there's a bitonal tension throughout the piece. And I'll show you the very first interval that you're going to hear between the voices is dissonant, as is the very last interval in the piece. So let me show you those. As the beginning, and here's at the end. So you can hear this soft dissonance. The melodies that you're going to hear in here, particularly in the female voice, are again the flute-like melodies that were known by the Native American Plains tribes. And this type of flute melody with its ornamentation, he uses this to represent the traditional courtship songs that were common to the Plains tribes. Now, Lewis had some very specific performance instructions on this one. He said to do the following, and I will try to do it. He said, at the end, you'll lift the pedal, but before the sound dissipates, I want you to lift your hands very carefully and hold them up in front of you as if you're projecting something or holding something back. Spread your fingers out and slowly place them on your lap. There is something happening here. And I want the audience to realize that whatever dialogue this prelude interrupted is still happening. You just can't hear it. of the set is called Tokane. It's a warrior dance. Now, Louis was a very active dancer in the Quapaw powwows in his youth, and he intimately knew all the dance styles. He establishes a sense of meter, a 6/8 at the beginning of this piece, but then you'll hear explosive attacks interrupting that feel of the meter throughout. It's a fast piece, very improvisatory in spirit. Let me show you the beginning so you'll hear the meter and then some of these explosive attacks. Now, Louis also had specific instructions for the performer at the end of this. He said, at the end, you lift the pedal. I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one, excuse me. He said, he said at the end, there's this really big tone cluster that happens with the forearm, and there's a large A minor chord that happens at the bottom of the piano. Let me show you those. This is the end of the piece. He wants for the performer to hold the pedal down and then gradually release the pedal, but hold the chords, and then the sound will begin to die. If the audience starts to leave, you stay there until the sound dies. You stay there forever. So we will hear Tokane, the warrior dance. I had the great pleasure and honor to meet Louis Ballard in the 1980s. And I was going to play a program at Carnegie Recital Hall in October of 1984. And on the program was the Haydn C minor fantasy, the Haydn C major fantasy, Mozart C minor fantasy, Prokofiev 7th Sonata, and the Schumann Symphonic Etudes. But I have always had an interest in contemporary and new music, so I wanted to put something else on the program that was new. And I had read a review in the New York Times of Louis's music, this Incident at Wounded Knee piece I referred to earlier, that Dennis Russell Davies and the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra had performed in New York. I found it interesting. And I also heard something on the radio of his. So I contacted ASCAP, that's the American Society of Composer, Authors, and Publishers, and to try to find Lewis's contact information. They gave me his address and his phone number. So I wrote to him, and I asked him, Mr. Ballard, do you have any piano music? And he said, well, actually, I have a piece that was premiered, had a world premiere, one of his concert fantasies called City of Silver, but it hasn't had a New York premiere yet. And would I be interested in that? I said, well, please send me the score. So he sent me the score, and I looked at it, and I thought, yeah, this would be great for my program. So I said, I would love to give the New York premiere of this in my concert. He said, great. Then a few days go by, and I'm learning it. These pieces of his, these concert fantasies are extraordinarily difficult. And he gets in touch. He said, Roberta, I'm working on another concert fantasy. I'm completing it this summer. It's called A City of Fire, and it's dedicated to Los Alamos, New Mexico. He said, would you possibly pair this piece with the City of Silver on your concert? And being very young at the time and foolish, I said, well, let me see the score. So he sent me the score, and I liked it a lot. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. And so I ended up giving the premieres of these two concert fantasies of Lewis, and it was kind of, he noted this later after it happened, but he said it really was a historical evening, that October evening in 1984, because it is the first time that a Native American pianist has performed compositions of a Native American composer at Carnegie Hall. So the first one that we're going to look at is the concert fantasy, A City of Silver, which was inspired by the city of Buenos Aires, Argentina. But it has a dedication called Todos los Desaparecidos del Mundo, which means for all the disappeared ones of the world. And some of you may be familiar with what went on in Latin America in the 1970s. This is especially directed to what went on in Argentina in those years, and the disappearance of many citizens at the hands of the military in Argentina. There's an excellent movie came out just a few years ago that can give you great context if you don't know about this historical period. It's called Argentina 1985. So check that out if you're interested more in that history. But at the back of the score, Lewis wrote the following about this piece, and then he dated these remarks, January 6, 1981. This composition was inspired by the composer's visit to Buenos Aires, Argentina, in August of 1980, and the warm memories of that great city of lovely, hospitable, and exuberant people, where the precious metal silver was so evident as an integral part of the history and life of that robust and thriving metropolis. However, the beauty and grandeur were somewhat marred when the composer learned more about those who have disappeared, who are termed Los Desaparecidos in this and other countries in South America. Hence the dedication to all who have disappeared in the world and whose shadows and spirits alone inhabit an imaginary city of silver, for whom this work was written and dedicated. Viva los Desaparecidos. I'm going to give you kind of a movie trailer version of these two concert fantasies. In other words, we're just doing excerpts. I'll play the beginning section of the City of Silver and the ending section of the City of Silver. And at one point in the score, in the second excerpt, you'll hear Lewis writes in very bold marks on the score, Viva los Desaparecidos. It's at a climactic point. And when we get there, I'm going to say that out loud. Of course, I did not do that at the premiere performance. He would not have probably wanted me to do that. I did play the works for him. I got his feedback. He did come to that concert in New York. But I thought I would do it for you today, so you will see, you'll get an idea where he placed those words in the score. See, we will now hear excerpts from Lewis Ballard's concert fantasy, A City of Silver. The second concert fantasy, as mentioned, is entitled City of Fire and dedicated to Los Alamos, New Mexico, which was close to where Lewis was living most of his life in Santa Fe. Upon the evening of the concert, where the world premiere was given of this work, that October 12, 1984, Lewis received the following note from the chairman of the Los Alamos County Council, a gentleman named Sidney Singer, and he had the following to say: "From the people of Los Alamos, whose efforts and spirit inspired your music, and from a community which deeply appreciates creativity and artistry in all of its forms, congratulations on the occasion of the world premiere of your composition, A City of Fire. The sacred fires of human inspiration, which earlier gave birth to the age of nuclear energy, are quite capable, when broadly directed, of sponsoring another age, one of enlightenment, based on a deep understanding of nature and a thoughtful application of its fruits. Perhaps frustration and loss of innocence, notions thematic to your music, are inevitable parts of the learning process and our social and artistic evolution. We hope that a new age of enlightenment can integrate these powerful forces and emotions to fuel new sacred fires for the benefit of all humankind." And another recent film to help you put this piece in context is the Academy Award-winning film many of you may have already seen, Oppenheimer, but that will give you an idea of the context of this piece. So we'll hear now, I'll just play the opening section of the City of Fire. It captures a little bit of a movement that was beginning to go on in composition and kind of a neo-romanticism that the composers were beginning to experiment with. You'll hear a little bit of that. So I'll just play the opening few pages of A City of Fire. These works in their entirety. Parma, with its Navajo Records label, released my premiere performances of these two works from that 1984 performance at Carnegie Recital Hall. And if you visit my website, robertarust.com, and go to the recording section, you can find it. And it's you can hear it on Spotify or YouTube or Apple Music or whatever. But in that particular location are the complete performance of these two works that I just showed you excerpts from. Now I want to share with you a quote from the Oglala Sioux holy man, Black Help, who lived from 1863 to 1950. "You have noticed that everything an Indian does is in a circle, and that is because the power of the world always works in circles, and everything tries to be round. The sky is round like a ball, and so are all the stars. The wind, in its greatest power, whirls. Birds make their nests in circles, for theirs is the same religion as ours. Even the seasons form a great circle in their changing and always come back again to where they were. The life of a man is a circle from childhood to childhood, and so it is in everything where power moves. So we will follow this spirit today in our program and make a bit of a circle and return to some music of Chee, who we began the program with. I'd like to close today with two more of his Navajo Vocables to 2014, from 2014. you so much for spending some time this afternoon listening to this music. If you would like to know more about Connor Chee, he has a wonderful website, simple, www.connorchee, that's CONNORCHEE, connorchee.com. And Naxos, the record label, released this past year a wonderful new CD of some of the most important orchestral and ballet works of Louis Ballard. And it was the Fort Smith Symphony that has performed on the recording. It's a superb recording. It'll give you some idea of his major works. So thanks again so much for coming out. Thank you.